Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the launch of The Rise of the Badger and the Giant Shrubbery. I knew I was going to fall over that word. This amazing and unique anthology is full of art and poetry and prose, fictional and non-fictional. My name is Josephine Leigh. I'm a poet and writer living in Gloucester, and obviously with my husband, Peter Leigh. So Peter is the publisher and the person who envisaged his book, as you all know, nearly 2 years ago in now. And in a moment, I'll hand over to him to tell you more. Jason Conway is kindly running our tech, and he also designed this wonderful cover. So well done, Jason. For now, it's my pleasure to welcome readers that are taking part of this evening, and most of them have submitted to the anthology, and also to all our audience. Before I go any further, could I just say, if everybody could mute so that we don't get any disturbance, and there will be opportunities to unmute and show your appreciation. The chat facility is at the bottom, as we've now been talking, and you can use this to add comments about the event and the reader's work. The order of the open mics should be going into the chat. Is that right, Jason?
Yep.
Okay, that's brilliant. So this evening, we will start with a talk from Peter, and then we have Adam Horovitz, who will be reading a few poems for us, and then Stewart, Carswell, and so on. And as I say, nearly everybody who is reading has submitted to the anthology, which is wonderful. There is a lot here to entertain us. But as I say in my introduction to the book, there's a sober element, obviously. Within these pages, we assume that the human race has failed to protect itself and has finally become extinct. What happens next on this small blue planet that floats in a minor solar system within the vastness of space? The importance of this anthology and the discussions it will hopefully generate has become more increasingly apparent. This last summer of 2025 has seen extreme temperatures across Europe, and there can be little doubt that global warming is no longer just a theory. Prevention is possible. We are innovative and flexible creatures. But if greed and pursuit of personal gain is more important to us than the current worsening situation, then the scenarios between these covers might actually come about. So that is the start. And now it's going to give me great pleasure to introduce Peter Leigh. Peter Leigh is a writer and publisher living in Gloucestershire. He doesn't consider himself a writer, more as somebody who occasionally writes. Peter founded Black Eyes Publishing UK in January 2018. Black Eyes has published individual poets and writers, as well as various anthologies. From January 2020 till December 2022, Peter was the events coordinator for the Gloucestershire Poetry Society, in brackets GPS, working alongside myself, who was at that time director of ops, and Jason Conway, who was the design and tech director. Peter also ran the annual open poetry competition from 2020 to 2024. In a previous existence, Peter was the manager of several rock bands, and before that, he was a youth and community worker in Gloucestershire. He has published 2 poetry collections, Becoming Naked in 2023 and Still Tilting at Windmills in 2029. So, big round applause for Peter Leigh.
Wow. 2029. Wow.
2029, did I say? Sorry, 2025.
Never mind. Can you hear me? Do I need to speak up?
Yes, we can hear you.
Right. Okay. So, I'm just going to recap a few things. I don't want to go over too much because most of it is in the preface that I put in the front of the book and that went out with the submission opportunities. So the conception of this book started on the 28th of October, 2023. I was at a climate crisis meeting in Surrey and people, like they do, were talking about saving the planet. And while I was driving back to Gloucester from Surrey, I realized actually the planet will be fine. It's the people that are doomed. So that's where the germ of this idea came from. That weekend, I checked what the #1 predator was in the UK, and it's the badger. And the title came quickly after that. Rise of the Badger seemed to just fall into place. And the Great Shrubbery, there's a car park between Gloucester and Stroud, Brockworth and Stroud, on the A36, is it? And it's still got the height restrictions on the front, but it's no longer in use because of rockfall. It's just below the cheese rolling hill that you may have heard of. And it's now all overgrown. It's got trees, shrubs, and whatever. Nature has taken over. So that is where the title came from. And the Great Shrubbery, obviously, is a bit of a throwback to my youth of Monty Python. I talked to a few people about the idea early on. Amongst them, Adam Horovitz, who was one of the first people that we spoke to, and one of the first people that said he was contributing. And the idea seemed well received. It's a serious idea, but we had to sort of not get too serious about it. And I think somehow we've managed it, because the rest, they say, is history. The book has been published. Lots of you people are in it. And it was good to see that it was high in the Extinction bestsellers lists. It got up to #3 at one point, I think, and is still in the top 20. And in political and protest, and high in the political and protest bestsellers list, amongst such books as 1984, Paradise Lost, What by John Cooper Clarke, Animal Farm, and various editions of those books. And there was Rise of the Badger sitting there amongst them at one point at #7, I think. It's quite scary, really, isn't it? So here we are. So sorry, I've got to close down something on my computer. So I wrote a poem for the thing, and obviously it's called Rise of the Badger. So I'm going to read my poem from Rise of the Badger, and it's called Rise of the Badger. And funnily enough, it's about badgers. Rise of the Badger. There came a time when women came to the hill, painted their faces to look like us, danced naked around the trees. Each long hot summer they came, their numbers thinning as seasons went by, until there were none. We forgot their distraction, got on with our lives, seasons passed, we multiplied, came down from the hill, no sign of woman or man, just empty broken shells of their many structures, sprouting vegetation and trees. Some of us went back to protect our ancestral home, but most of us stayed. Found a number of those structures had underground spaces which we occupied, claimed as our own, and extended into the earth. We drove out foxes and feral cats. We tolerated deer and cattle. There were no dogs. Of course, there were crows. There are always crows. More about crows later. As we dug, we dined on worms. We also ate rodents, squirrels, insects, fruit, and vegetation, sometimes deer or dead birds. Like the crows, our diet is adaptable. We are omnivores as humans were. We made contact with other sets, built links, built communities. We explored far and wide. Our territory is surrounded by water. Without humans we once feared, we aren't hunted, too big for even the largest birds that circle in the sky. Yet some of us wonder what lies beyond the water and what creatures dominate those distant spaces. Thank you. That's my bit.
Thank you, Peter. If you'd like to unmute and give Peter a round of applause, or you can send your artificial hands clapping up the side of the poem. That's fine. Okay, thank you, Peter. So here we are. Here is the wonderful book, if there's anybody not seen it, behind Peter. And it is fabulous. We have beautiful, full-coloured artwork as well as lots of poetry. So, and on the back we have Gurinder Singh's picture. Is that the... No? That's not. I've got the wrong picture. Sorry, I beg your pardon. But we have got Gurinder Singh inside. Brilliant. Okay. Next up, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Adam Horovitz. And as Peter said, Adam was one of the first people to subscribe to the anthology. Adam is a poet, performer, and editor based in Stroud. He is a poet for whom the page and the stage are equally important, and who thrives on collaboration with musicians and artists. His work has been translated into Spanish, French, Ukrainian, Slovakian, Macedonian, and German. His latest poetry collection, Slow Migrations, was published in June 2025. Slow Migrations is an exploration of the west of England before it was English, seen through the lenses of Corinium Museum's Neolithic Gallery and the Roman Baths at Bath. He has released 3 previous books of poetry: Turning, published by Headland in 2011, The Soil Never Sleeps, Palewell Press, 2018, and an extended edition in 2019. Love and Other Fairy Tales, published by Indigo Dreams in 2021. Several pamphlets and a memoir about growing up in Cider with Rosie country. 1,000 Laurie Lees, History Press, 2014. He has most recently collaborated with musician Chris Cundy on the Archaeology of the Ear series for Resonance FM. Could you please give a warm applause for Adam Horovitz?
Well, thank you, Josephine, and Peter. Thank you for... Josephine and Peter came to Stroud not long after Peter had conceived the idea of this anthology, and sat me down in a cafe in Stroud and said, we want you to write about, submit to this anthology. And I said, yes. And the only poem I had was kind of pre-posthuman. So I'm going to give you a short set of pre-posthuman poems to set you up for going fully posthuman later on in the anthology. And the first poem I'd like to read, I'll get to the one in the anthology later, but this is Conditions of Living. Once we died dreaming and drowning in the first flush of youth, our bones yellowing beneath our skins. We died standing up, propped on our spears, watching the world subsume us in a winding cloth of sand. We fell with our cattle and our crops when winter swallowed us like nightmares in a dream of sun. Now we are always in the light, but still we're fearful. The world spins faster. We see atoms dancing in our minds and slow our aging. Hide behind our mobile phones. Check our profiles in the darkened mirrors of the web. We do not recognize ourselves. Instinct is caged in ancient bodies which in their turn are caged in metal. The land grows meat instead of trees, and all the world's a stage that hates its players, who strut and forget that they are only scuffed knuckles on a fist of rock. So yeah, we're fragile on this earth. We are fragile. And we keep wanting to escape it, escape the realities of being part of the earth. So this poem kind of plays with that, and it's called The Long Earth, and it was written after reading the book by Terry Pratchett and Stephen Baxter, The Long Earth, which imagines a multiverse. And it's kind of, I call it a Rorschach sonnet, because it's the rhyme, the first line rhymes with the 12th line, the second with the 11th, and so on back through, and then there's a volta at the end. This is The Long Earth. after Terry Pratchett and Stephen Baxter. If all it took was just a sideways step to break your shackle to this tired earth, untangle the strings of quantum physics and shimmer down the mirror parallel, find worlds which Darwin could have barely dreamed, would you not do it? Would you not run? I'd be off faster than the starting gun to seek the long earth flickering, unreamed, new genera, and what mutations dwell under different suns. I'd hunt strange musics courting riverbanks, mountains, and the surf, if all it took were but a sideways step. Yet here we stay. There is no interstitial strait, just dreams, the faith of science, all that we create. This next poem, sometimes people ask, is the I in this poem you? Is this in any way autobiographical? This is not. The me in this poem is not me. Seeding. They seat me at the mouth of a bunker of sun-black rocks, cross-legged and rigid. The air is thin as watered whiskey, potent as opium. It scalds my blood, scolds it to silence, carries the voices of crows raised in throaty celebration, a carrion song reserved for rotting sheep across the mountain. The sun hauls its blazing bones behind a jaw of rock. A purple bruise of heather on the mountain yammers farewell. A soft comb of rain flattens my hair. I can feel the crows squeezing sheep's eyes in their beaks like seeds. I have been here for weeks, or maybe months, I cannot tell. My flesh has adapted, is akin to stone. Each outward breath spawns the seeds of clouds. I am crumbling into myself, overwriting the past as I watch weather-beaten, tenacious shrubs cling to a storm-wrecked raft of granite in a wine-dark heather sea. At best, home is unwieldy memory. At worst, hallucination. Children, cats, and lovers dance hazy in the sunlight into oblivion. Only the mountain seems real. The crows tell me the bell tolls for the end of my penance in a tower beneath the sea. In the flat, forgotten fields of memory I hear them. They buzz like a canker full of flies. All that I knew is gone. The crows sharpen their beaks on my calves, peck beetles from the moss in my groin. The next is a slightly different, on a slightly different tack, and it does rely on you having watched Looney Tunes cartoons as a child and knowing who Wile E. Coyote is. So I hope most of you do, at least.
Indeed.
Nice kitchen. So this is Wile E. Coyote pauses for thought. All these unthinking technocratic years shooting myself from giant rubber bands and pouring vitamins, the kind that build your limbs into flexible hillsides down my ravenous throat. And here I still am, a blurring swarm of legs scrabbling at molecules of air, waiting for the river rush of sun-red stone. Nature has its favorite ways of saying no. Earthquake, tsunami, volcano. The acme of that's all, folks. But I've encountered subtler signs. Now I am certain that the cliff face, not the bird, opens up the tunnels I can't run through, that boulders shift and twitch into my way as the desert dreams of my defeat. There is a lesson to be learned which does not fit onto the tiny signs I use to whisper my goodbyes before becoming yet another distant puff of canyon smoke. I must remember that I am a machine, the pinnacle of pursuit, must temper my reliance on things other than myself. No more exploding birdseed, no more backfiring guns. I must become what I pursue. This time as I fall, I'll yell, meet me! So this is the poem from the anthology. It's called On a Different Page. Someone broke the index of our existence, stripped away references for firelighters, buried the gutted books of life in a pit beneath a motorway. It was never clear who. The world slipped slowly out of joint around us. Bees ceased singing their ancient winter song of warmth when we passed the hives. I learned to sympathize with clipped-winged queens, lost in the grass, unable to lead the swarm, stripped of leadership, survival, flight. Nothing worked as it should. Trapped in a spiral of panic, all our fragmented moments span into the gutter like autumn leaves. We tried to pollinate our memory with feathers as the crop of thought began to fail, but frost ate the blossom on every tree. Home sidled out of focus, so we travelled from house to indistinct house, trying keys in any door that looked as if it might be ours. The people we assumed were listening within made no noise, however much we called for their attention. They're on a different page, you said, as rusting engines cropped the dark turf and turrets flew out of the flesh of birds. Finally, everything we understood ceased moving. You faded from reference just as a hum of new music, a binding heartbeat of numbers, swelled beneath broken fragments of tarmac. In whispering fields, the processes of growth opened up a different book, its index born of grass and trees and wild wheat. Only a few bent leaves to mark my passage through this wilderness, should someone find them who can understand. Nowhere else a reference to the genus of man.
Wow.
Wow.
And the final poem, at which point we become completely post-human if you take out a couple of references to spades and ploughs. This is the thing that will survive. The soil never sleeps. The soil never sleeps. In its voids, gas and waters gather, waiting for thirsty roots to crawl down motorway tunnels dug by worms, for the spade, the plough, the massage press of hooves, for the rain to run through its seams and seeds to push up to the light. The soil never sleeps. It banks lives in its souffle's stomach, connects them to everything. Even the dirt beneath fingernails, the dirt caught in a mole's coat, sings with a million microbes to the gram of connections, growth. The soil never sleeps, never slips into ideology or nostalgia. It is place and purpose, the perfection of decay, a story that shifts from mouth to mouth, a crucible for rebirth, a rooftop on another world. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Adam. Please unmute and give a wonderful applause for Adam Horovitz. And I can't believe that that Soil Never Sleeps poem is perfect. Absolutely perfect for this scene. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Wow. Okay. Right. I'm just lost what I'm supposed to be looking at. I do apologize. I was far too ensconced in what Adam was reading. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Adam. Next up, we have Stewart Carswell. Stewart Carswell grew up in the Forest of Dean. His poems have recently been published in Under the Radar, Finished Creatures, Ink, Sweat and Tears, and The Storm's Journal. His pamphlet, Knots and Branches, was published in 2016, and his debut-length collection, Earthworks, was published in 2021 by Indigo Dreams. So it gives us great pleasure to have Stewart Carswell with us.
Thank you, Josephine. Yeah, I've got quite a act to live up to having to follow on from Adam like that.
If anybody can do it, you can, Stewart.
I'll do my best. Um, yeah, so I've written a series of love poems told from a point of view of different animals, and I'm going to read two of those tonight. So, given the title of the anthology, the one which got included in there is Love Song of the Badger. When I come to you, it's because it smells safe. No predators, just us, entering at dusk. But doesn't my fur look well groomed tonight? And in this domain of darkness, we are emperors of the field. You can slaughter as many earthworms and beetles as you like, drag their bodies out of mud and feed them to me on platters of moonlight. My insatiable desire, your insatiable lust for fur and territory, our land demarked with spray and scat, from the old oak stump by the wire fence, down to the far end of the meadow and across to the bank beneath the hedgerow where my claws scratch away the soil and tunnel the hollow home of where my cubs were born, where I was born, in this dark, in this earth. Thank you. And the next one I want to read is Love Song of the Deer. And in this poem, I've made up a word. I wanted a word which was like an onomatopoeic word that describes the bellowing sound that deer make in the autumn. So if you hear me making a sort of primal bellowing, that's kind of what I'm trying to imitate in this poem. This is Love Song of the Deer. When I come to you, it's because you are calling for me. A primal brawl, as deep as a forest is ancient, that I hear wherever I am, wherever you are. A bellowing that vibrates the roots and stalks in the soil. Even the oaks tremble a little because of you. And when I come to you, you're circling a clearing summoned by ferns, your coat the colour of chestnut, your antlers high like the canopy, and your hooves pacing the soft ground of fallen leaves, the body of the forest rotting back into itself. Here, the only prints are cloven, no trace of hound or human in our theatre of wood from which you prowl, and each time you do, I watch the gentle mist form out of your hot breath. Thank you.
Oh, wow. That was brilliant. And I love that second one with the new word. How do you spell it?
I'll put it in the chat so you can
Yes,
see. It's a
please.
bit
That would
weird.
be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Please
Listen, I
unmute and
think
give a
we're all-
wonderful round of applause for Stewart Carswell.
I think we're all going to go around saying that word now. It's sort
Yes,
of the real ring to it, isn't it? Yeah.
that was brilliant. Thank you so much. Well, we've had the whole evening set up beautifully by Adam and then Stewart. And next, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Alex Perry. Now, Alex is probably not going to read us a poem. Alex is
It's
a
a prose piece in the book.
yes, I'm just about to say.
Yeah.
Alex Perry is a scientist and has a PhD in chemistry. He's a writer and has written screenplays for short films. He has participated in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and the Royal Shakespeare Company Open Stages. Alex lives in the east of England, and I think I'm right in saying you're going to discuss or talk a little bit about climate change. Is that correct?
Yes, I was asked to say something about the science of extinction.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Warm welcome for Alex Perry.
Thank you. I mean, just to keep it brief, in terms of species and survival, all species live here on planet Earth, and on planet Earth, the environment changes all the time. For every species, the challenge is always to adapt to changes in the environment. Now, there's exceptions, like when we were hit by a giant meteorite millions of years ago and the dinosaurs were wiped out. But apart from those exceptions, most of the time, the environment on Earth is actually changing at a slow rate, and species have time to adapt and time to survive. So species can become extinct in nature anyway, and if there was no human race. But what we do to make extinction a risk for ourselves and other species is that we've got the power to cause changes to the environment that are very, very quick. The number one way at the moment in which we are causing species to be extinct is by destroying habitat, things like deforestation. Essentially, a habitat, say orangutans in trees, the trees give them a home, a place to live, a place to avoid predators, a food source. Take away the trees, they lose the food, and it's much easier for other creatures to hunt them down. So destroying habitat is the number one thing that is causing loss of species at the moment. Number two is that we are super predators with our technology. Example being how we've improved in the last 100 years at catching fish to the extent that we're overfishing and wiping out species of fish because we're eating them faster than they can reproduce. And a third important way in which we are causing problems is through climate change. Coral reefs are beginning to disappear, which should not be disappearing because of the extra CO2 going into the oceans, for example. Another one is that there are certain species of bird that have, for example, white feathers, because most of the time they live in an area that's snowy and they can camouflage in the snow. Put a bit of climate change into the mix, and suddenly you have birds with white feathers in an area in which there isn't any snow anymore, lots of green vegetation, and suddenly their predators can hunt them down. And these changes in the environment have happened in just a few years, like a decade, and species normally take hundreds, thousands, millions of years, perhaps, to adapt to survive. So that's the risk that we're causing with climate change, but also to ourselves. I mean, we've got the technology, things like nuclear weapons and what have you, where we could just wipe ourselves out very quickly indeed. So sorry to be the bearer of that bad news and that sad summary of what we're capable of, but it's finding ways as human beings to not go down those roads.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Alex. That really puts the picture in place. And of course, this is how we could disappear if we're not careful. Please unmute and give a big round of applause for Alex Perry. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Carol Sheppard. Sorry?
Serious thought.
Very serious thought, yes.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Carol Sheppard. Now, Carol says she doesn't know whether to write poetry or plays, so she writes both. She's been published in several poetry journals and anthologies, and her poems have been exhibited in the Bigger Poetry Garden and Poetry Posts in Bream and in Portland, Oregon. She was poet in residence at the GPS Festival 2035. No, the Gloucester Poetry Festival, isn't it? The Gloucester Poetry Festival in 2023, and is an active member of the GPS and Dean Writers Circle. Her first poetry collection, Made of Glass, is published by Red Balcony Press, an imprint of Black Eyes, in this year, 2025. Please, a big round warm welcome for Carol Sheppard.
Hello, thank you. So I'm going to read my poem that's actually in the book. It's on page 121, if anyone wants to follow it. And the poem was inspired by a trip to go and see the Wildlife Photographer of the Year. And it had this photo of where polar bears had moved into these deserted and derelict sort of log cabins in the far reaches of Russia. So it's called The Polar Bears Have Moved Into the Houses. And it's not so serious as Alex is here. So Grandpa, pipe smoking beside hearth, remembers long days fishing. Grandma, veranda knitting, ponders old times when ice stretched far, oceans filled of fish. Dad prowls outside keeping watch, growling, scuffing frozen earth, impatient for dawn. Mum stirs fish stew, picking out bones, licking lips. Youngsters sprawl across rugs, squabbling, all teeth and claw. Polar bears are sleeping in beds at night, snuggled under duvets, woolen blankets. They watch stars through cracked glass, sparkles of frost on windowsills. Salt air ripples through broken panes, ruffles fur, brings storm breezes, deep in bone, sea scent of snow. Polar bears have moved into the houses. Thank you.
That was brilliant. Thank you, Carol. Yes, I can imagine it or not. Please, a big round of applause for Carol Sheppard. Next up, we have our very own Jason Conway. Jason is a professional daydreamer, director of the Gloucestershire Poetry Society, and editor of Steel Jackdaw magazine. He has an MA from Bar University, and his work is published in numerous magazines and anthologies. Jason's debut collection is The Wash of Hours, published by Black Eyes Publishing UK. Please, big round warm welcome for Jason Conway.
Thank you, Josephine. It's a pleasure to be asked to read tonight. My poem was actually written today, inspired by the collection and inspired also by a wonderful book called Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake, and some of the background will kind of hint to the theme of the poem. It's called Warp and Weft. We are ancient. Some of us remember the oldest ones when the great trade was made. But giants came to starve the soil, consumed our gifts as gods, severed our connection to the tallest ones. We are one. We thread their ghosts on the ground to remember what was wasted, what we had to remove, all the unworthy, the ones who did not share. We had to act, put a stop to the great clearance. The tallest ones agreed for us to possess the giants, bring them to rest, return them all to soil. We are thankful. Some of us filtered their knowledge, took what was good in them, erased their evil. We shared what we knew with the tallest and smallest that grew. We shared our fruits, take only what we need. Give the fallen a good burial. We restored balance from chaos, gave the land back to fauna, as is the natural order. We are counsel, the bridge between dead and living, both communion and warning. The giants would have marvelled at walking trees and maps that feel, but they are gone, perchance a dream.
Thank you, Jason. That was brilliant. Really good new poem. I just wanted to say, sorry, I keep losing this. Jason, actually, his poem in the Oh, I haven't actually. Did you not put a poem in?
No, I didn't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I beg your pardon. I didn't. You missed it. Yes, I remember. Sorry. Okay, thank you, Jason. Please, a round of applause for that wonderful poem. Pity it isn't in, but there will be a second anthology, as Peter will talk about later. So hopefully it'll be in that. Okay, last but not least, for our first half, we have Chris Hemingway. After Chris, we'll have a 10-minute break. That's all right. And in the chat, Jason will put where you can buy the anthology. So if you're beginning to feel that you would like to have a look inside and you haven't already got a copy, I hope you'll go and buy one. Okay, so Chris Hemingway. Chris put 2 poems in, Hi, Nye, and also The Somewhat Unexpected Rise of the Lemmings. Chris Hemingway is a poet and songwriter from Gloucestershire. His most recent mini pamphlet, 10 Stains on the Reading List, is available from Hedgehog Press, to be closely followed by his new collection, Hard Luck Hotel 23. Chris volunteers for Cheltenham Poetry Festival and Cheltenham Park Run and works in the NHS. So a big round of applause for Chris Hemingway.
Thank you. And thank you for pulling the book together. It's a really good book. This is called, as Josephine said, The Somewhat Unexpected Rise of the Lemmings. We were surprised too, to be honest, but we know a thing or two about mass extinction. And all those times you thought you saw us jumping, we weren't jumping. We were standing by with tunnels and mirrors, like unexpected suspects in a murder mystery. Except you never really got it, did you? The real murder mystery played out over decades. The killer kept screaming, "It'll be me, I'll do it, unless you vote for someone else." The corporations kept nodding, and us, "We'll do it too, unless you start mending things." So, what were the cliffs? And who was really jumping? But we're not complacent. I heard last night they're fortifying Leamington Spa against the threat from Leningrad. Thank you.
That was brilliant. Thank you, Chris. Please, everybody, would you unmute and give a round of applause for Peter, for Adam Horovitz, for Stewart Carswell, for Alex Perry, for Carol Sheppard, for Jason Conway, and Chris Hemingway. Please, a big round of applause. Woo! Woo! That was a brilliant first half. Thank you all so much for contributing. And we will have a 10-minute break, and then we will be back for some more. So hope to see you then. Do you want to stop?
Right. So I'm introducing the beginning of the second half because one of the people I'll be introducing is Josephine, because she wrote a poem that's in the book. And one of the things that I was going to let you know that Josephine gave away at the end of the first half is that we are now definitely going to do a second book. The title as yet is unannounced, although I think we have a title, but you know that won't be announced until we do the submission. Submissions will probably open for the second book in Easter, and it will be published in Easter 2027. So there'll be almost a year to get stuff in. Definitely with the second book, there will definitely be no humans. It's gone. It's post-humans, definitely. In Rise of the Badger, there are humans that are going and stuff like that. So, but in the new book, the second one, there will be no humans. It will be what happens next, and there will be clues and thoughts about all that when we put the submission window out. So don't start writing yet unless you've got something real radical idea. So, but it will come out in the submission window will start in Easter. Okay, you ready, Josephine?
Yeah.
Right.
So, yes.
Josephine Lay, Josephine Lay is a poet and writer living in Gloucester. She has a BA Honours and MA in Creative Writing from Bath Spa University. She has published a collection of short stories, Saffron Tones, and a novel, Creating Stanley, 2022. The Saffron Tones was 2017. As a poet, Josephine has published 3 collections, Inside Reality 2018, Unraveling 2019, and A Quietus 2021. Josephine, as she said, was director of Ops of the Gloucester Poetry Society from January 2020 to December 22, which you might remember was a bit of a disaster time. When lockdown struck, she started and hosted the Society's online monthly event, Crafty Crows, which is still running under Jason's auspices. Jason also runs live poetry events and recently started poetry cafes in Cheltenham and Gloucester libraries. Josephine is the editor for Black Eyes Publishing UK and is presently working on a 4th poetry collection. Josephine Lay.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. I wanted to go really small when I thought of a poem for this book, so I've written Tardigrades, and I've entitled it With Love of Tiny Things. You minuscule, slow-stepping creatures, 8 legs that end in tiny hooked claws, a mouth set to suck with razor-sharp teeth to bite into your prey and draw out fluid from all types of simple-celled organisms. Your body is creased into segments, covered in cuticle that sheds as you grow. A millimetre long, cute and lovable, your size belies how durable you are, how totally indestructible. Water babies found within moisture beneath oceans, at the bottom of lakes, or in moist moss on the roofs of buildings. Microscopically adorable, we name you moss piglets or water bears. 1,000 of your cousins span the earth, wade through water at a leisurely pace. Like the tortoise and the hare, you beat us and all other dominant species in this pivotal race for survival. When the planet heats, when deserts spread wide, when drought threatens all living creatures, you will desiccate, roll into a ball, become a cyst that waits for eons until rain falls and you revive to carry on. Extreme pressure and low temperature don't deter. Far beneath the sea, you mate. The male caresses the female with his cilia, enters her to place his sperm, then she sheds her cuticle, eggs protected inside. Water bears, you are a hope for the future we have been unable to destroy. Though we've taken you into the vacuum of space, placed you in solar wind and cosmic rays, still you swim on through this planet's water. You will be the survivors, oblivious of us and our devastating demise. Thank you. Okay. Got to get back up to where I was. Thank you. Okay, so next up we have Roger Turner. Roger worked as an architect and a garden designer and has designed award-winning gardens at the Chelsea Flower Show and the Garden Festival in South Wales. He is the author of 5 non-fiction books on landscape history and garden design and plants. His poetry has been published in more than 100 reputable magazines. He is currently chairman of Cheltenham's Poetry Society. U.A. Fanthorpe said of his poetry, Turner is that not often found thing, a master of the sentence. His are like Hopkins weeds, long, lovely, and lush. Big welcome for Roger Turner.
Thank you very much, Josephine. Well, the first poem I'm going to read is about a plant, a rather insignificant looking plant, but it's a plant that appears if you neglect spaces. It grows on the sides of buildings if you aren't careful. I saw one in Ivrea. Here it is, if you can see that. Oops, there we are. In Italy. It grows in Cheltenham and Gloucester and all over the British Isles. It's a fairly dull, sort of boring little plant, green in all its parts. But the point about it is that if you neglect your buildings, if, for example, the human race was made extinct and we left all our buildings behind, the first plant that would come to colonize would be this one, which is called Pellitory of the Wall. The form of the poem is a Kyrie, which means that the last line is repeated in many of the quatrains. So here we go, Pellitory of the Wall. You are not beautiful at all, a dusty, harmless, dull green creature, nestling quietly in the corner, pellitory of the wall. And yet you seem to be a small, almost unnoticed messenger, a step into a leafy future, pellitory of the wall. No one sees your soft seeds fall. Your tiny stems, as they take root, are almost trodden underfoot, between the pavement and the wall. Fleabane of Canada, lank and tall, ubiquitous but alien, is usually your companion, pellitory of the wall. But if we do no work at all, forget all tidying and weeding, then, on the summer wind, self-seeding, comes pellitory of the wall, with willow herb and pimpernel, scented mayweed, grey fat hen, nature's army flying in, seeking to recover all. Day after day they grow more tall, with budlier, ash and goldenrod, until the town becomes a wood, and ivy colours every wall. But you are first, though low and small, to soften every scar and stain, and make the whole world green again, pellitory of the wall. It's incidentally that won third prize in the East Riding of Yorkshire poetry competition a few years back. The second poem is a little bit more drastic. I went to a concert of piano music and I saw the piano lid being closed, and pianos are black, and it's the music stops and the piano is closed, and I thought, well, what if all music stops? What if all humankind comes to a full stop? So it's called After the Concert. At last the passion and tumult are finished. The black notes and the white are lying still. The pianist has gone, and also the audience, and all is silent in the splendid hall. Some men who are not famous come quietly and without emotion, lower the curving silhouetted lid, black as a night sky that has no stars. The noise, the excitement, the joy, the grief, all will be forgotten, will fade beyond recall, when galaxies of stars, suns, planet Earth, go down into the infinitely dark, and time that made the heart beat and moved the hands, gone too. The music of the sunlight and the starlight will be over, and the concert. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. That was lovely. Thank you for both those poems. Okay, next up we have Emma Davidson. Emma Davidson is a Worcester-based poet whose work explores contemporary social issues with honesty and heart. Her writing engages with topics such as inequality, mental health, identity, and community, often reflecting lived-through experiences. In 2023, she won the Armed Forces Community Starts Award and now performs across the UK as part of their creative collective. Her poetry appears in the Broken Soul Poetry Anthology 2024 to 2025, the Speak Out LGBTQ Community Anthology 2025, and numerous independent zines and creative publications. Please give a warm welcome for Emma Davidson.
Thank you, everyone. This is quite a move from what I normally write, so bear with me a little bit. It's called From the Stump, a Forest Rose for the Fallen at Sycamore Gap. It started with a single crack. This wasn't thunder, but blade. A whine through dawn mist where the lone tree stood, rooted in history, its limbs cradling the sky. No storm, no fire, just man. Steel teeth through heartwood, sawdust where shade once danced. The sycamore fell, not with a roar, but with the silence that comes after a war ends. Some said it was just a tree, but we knew. The moment it hit earth, the world sighed in grief. Winds changed direction, screens flicked, the skies dimmed, and a stillness seeped through steel and stone. Pipes cracked, rails buckled, roads broke under their own memory. The servers hummed one last lullaby before going dark. We called it collapse. Nature called it their return. From the stump, green arms reached up. Shoots like prayers, moss crowned their severed bark. Roots unshackled, stretching wide, cracking open the tombs of tarmac. From gutters sprang brambles, from satellites, sparrows' nests. Winds sang through shattered glass while wisteria climbed Parliament's bones. No kings now, only crows. Badgers walked back into the cities as if they'd never left. No fear in their stride, only hunger and inheritance. Shrubs tore through the shopping malls, spilled through escalators as they broke their branded lights letter by letter. Oceans now moved differently. Mountains exhaled, fires cooled, and time slowed. In place of people, there were petals. In place of nations, there were networks of roots. No more borders, but rivers. No laws, but seasons. The last poem written by a human was carved into the stump. We had our chance. And from it, ferns unfurled. A forest rose, not in rage, but in a rhythm. Not in vengeance, but in total balance. We are the echoes now, and the earth sings still. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma Davison. That was brilliant. It really, images there were really strong. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Maria T. de Stefano. Maria T. is a West Midlands published spoken word poet. Her work explores social and political issues with heartfelt honesty. She has been featured on BBC Radio Upload, Brum Radio Poets, the Poetic Podcast, the Bounty Bunch Podcast. Her work has recently featured as part of an art and poetry exhibition at Worcester City Art Gallery and Museum. She's featured on several live and online open mic events, including Ubi Hive, Yes We Can't, and Accessibility Arts. Her debut poetry collection, Stolen Dreams of a Girl Child, is published by Mini Poetry Press. Warm welcome, please, for Maria T.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. Can I just say, Emma, that was a fantastic poem. I absolutely love it. And also, can I say thank you to Black Eyes Publishing, to Peter and Josephine and Jason for a really stunning book. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm so proud to have a poem as part of it. It's brilliant. Thank you so much. But I'm not going to do the poem that's in the book. I'm actually going to do the prequel. The poem in the book is called Rat 2.0. And the poem I'm going to do for you now is actually the first rat poem that I wrote that sort of precedes 2.0. Dear humankind, I am Rat, your soon-to-be post-apocalyptic successor. Rat, the new generation. Rat, Earth's new custodian. But please, dear human, do not reach for the poison. We plan no revolution, insurrection, or uprising. We simply sit back and wait till you fulfill your own extinction. You eye me with suspicion. Don't believe my supposition. Countless other species have expired at your hand. Tiger, elephant, orangutan are all facing their last stand. So to think you are invincible is quite frankly derisible. But to be your rat successor fills me with apprehension, for it is with sad rat eyes that I look upon your demise. For millennia we have lived together as rat and human in a give and take equation. You give us your rubbish, and we, the rats, flourish. And you give with surprising generosity, considering your animosity towards me and my kind. Indeed, we have thrived. We've never been more alive. You see, a landfill site is paradise in our rodent eyes. Your surplus greed fulfills the needs of our vermin nation. Never did we dream of such a tasty variation. From congealed dim sum to half-chewed burger bun, from the desiccated scrapings of a microwave meal to the soggy dregs of a snappy cereal, and we'll happily play host to a Sunday roast that's given up the ghost. But the cherry on the cake is, you wrap it all in plastic for lasting freshness. Really, is there no end to your human kindness? And there's no better rat's nest than a discarded mattress flung all couldn't care less on roadside verges. You really are so selfless with your mess that to refuse your refuse would be so remiss of us. So what can I say? You really are spoiling us. But alas, now that the hour of apocalypse has come and the human race is all but done, rest assured, dear human, your legend will live on for many a rat generation to come. We will muse on your demise like the lost city of Atlantis. How the bloody hell did they do this? Endowed with such intelligence that could put man on the moon, yet you doomed your very own existence. And for a race that claims to care for its children, the future you have left them is nothing short of negligence. Already we find your footprint in the seas, icebergs of rubbish that will not perish, fish floating belly up in pools of radioactive sludge. From pesticide to genocide, you really have covered all sides. But your memory will live on in our future rat lore. You will become the new dinosaur. Speaking as a rat, I cannot complain. Your loss will be our gain, but still I have to scratch my little rat brain. Nonetheless, it must be said we have learnt a lot from you, because you have taught us all the things Earth's custodians shouldn't do, from capitalism to greed to self-annihilation. So thank you, human race. From a rat's point of view, it was nice knowing you. Farewell and toodaloo.
That was brilliant. Thank you, Maria T. You really have covered all sides in that poem. It's brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay. Next up, we have Alan Mansell. Alan lives in southeast Shropshire and has retired after a working life spent largely in higher education, financial administration. A number of individual poems have been shortlisted, longlisted, or published in various publications in recent years. His interests include walking, history, particularly British social history, conservation, poetry, music, and following a notably unsuccessful local football team. Please, a big warm welcome for Alan Mansell.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd just like to, I won't do the one in the book, I just want to do a few short ones. I've just realised they all actually got some sort of rhyming thing, but sadly we've just seen our screens are just full of dreadful climate news. I just remember after COP27, we saw the third of Pakistan was flooded, in Australia, and everything, and locally, of course, as well in the UK. We go swing from one thing to the other, and the period 18 months ending March 2024 was the biggest amount of rain in England since records began that were comparable in 1836. And I sat one morning looking out the window as it was throwing it down and just wrote these few lines. Climate thoughts from Grasmere, spring 2024. I scudded one of dark grey crowd that wept tear veils o'er northern hills, clouded vistas in a stair-rod shroud, mud mess devoid of daffodils, bulbs golden promise, congealing jellies, our madness clings to walkers' wellies. And I said we've seen obviously misery again in the last few weeks locally here as well. With the rains, thankfully just down the road from me, being Bewdley, they've completed some flood defence work, which has saved some people some problems. This next one is called Orb Fertile Ploughed. Orb fertile ploughed majestic path, a jewel angels did admire, life's hub amidst gas giants cold, no blazing, raging fire. Unnumbered named this earth their home, claimed they loved very dear. In avarice gnawed to bare bone, and shared its funeral bier. Processing moon in orbit wept, tide's tears had tried in vain to quench greed dragon's breath of death, night's lance to searing pain. From fossil fuels it did exhale a choking atmosphere. Sad consequence left a bereft and lifeless spinning spear. And finally, this one's called One Planet. Our God gave to us one planet, an orb to share and care, complete for all and perfect, if only we were fair. Fair to all of his creation, fair to fellow man and beast, and to every tree and flower, the tallest and the least. For there is room for everything, on land, in sea and air, to live in peaceful harmony, if only we would share. Come, let us cast off selfishness, the root of harm and pain, and find that in our doing so, in all things we shall gain. Water free from harmful substance, fresh air that we can breathe, oceans clean that teem with fish again, not microplastic weed, and leave to those that follow us a planet spick and span, garden fit for God's creation, just as this world began.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alan. Those poems were very, very to the point and really made us think. Thank you very much. Big welcome, big applause for him. Next up, we have Rosie Barrett.
Hello.
Hello, with your lovely red, orange hair.
Thank you. I'm awake now.
Explain.
and hoping not to be to be cancelled for cultural appropriation, because I'm speaking in the words of a what am I doing? Of a horseshoe crab.
Okay, can I just give you introduce you though with your bio? That would be good. Rosie Barrett has lived in South Devon for more than half her life. Just, she puts in brackets. She's been writing on and off for as long as she can remember. Shortlisted for the Bridport Prize, she's had work published from Tasmania to the Mississippi, as well as the UK. She loves open mics, telling stories, and is working towards a slim volume of her own. So please, a warm welcome for Rosie Barrett.
Thank you. Okay. The planet's doing just fine, thank you. Seagrass waves in the currents as we scuttle over the seabed, checking out the algae, worms, clams, all grist to our mill. Bright pink coral glows as the hot, untroubled sun filters through. We're the master race now. In the vacuum, we have multiplied and thrived, grown even bigger, stronger, each an individual. No society here. We still climb the beaches at full moon and high tide, dragging the males clinging to our backs, lay our translucent greeny blue eggs, 4,000 at a time. Most of our babies make it through, but before we fed so many birds, red knots, ruddy turnstones, sanderlings, all gone now. Others have taken their place. You call us horseshoe crabs, but we're not. We're not crabs. We're arthropods. 10 legs, 2 to crush our food. We have no jaws. We're cousins to spiders, ticks, scorpions, who also survived. You took our milky blue blood to test vaccines for toxins. We helped you protect yourself against viruses, flu and COVID. You scooped us up, hung us in harnesses, drained 1/3 of our blood before chucking us back. We were here before the dinosaurs, 450 million years ago. We are still here.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rosie. That was brilliant. I didn't realize all of that about the virus and using them for our own ends again. Thank you very much.
I didn't until I looked it all up. Yep.
No, brilliant. Okay, next up we have Trevor Valentine. Trevor Valentine is a singer-songwriter who uses poetry as a foundation for his songs. Based now in the Forest of Dean and living in a former monastery, peace and quiet is now in abundance, which helps in writing his musical, due for completion in 2026. I think that might be in cohorts with Carol Sheppard, if I'm not wrong. Poetry is the foundation of good songwriting. Music is what feelings sound like. Trevor is currently working on a collection of his poems and songs with Red Balcony Press and imprint of Black Eyes. So a warm welcome to Trevor Valentine.
Thank you, Josephine. Just a short poem. It's on page 129 in the book. Wonderful book. Thank you, Peter. It's called Timber Cries. Timber, cries the crashing world, falling upon the crocodile eyes, poking from underneath the shoreline, its eternity unfettered, its timeline content to wait, sits quietly until we all are gone. From choke-filled ashes, only the mythical phoenix will survive. CO2, the blanket, smothering your cold, soon inert breath. Yet saunter on into your own discreet doom, no gloom. For walking backwards, you only see the footprints behind you, not the once iced cliff in front. Timber cries in ignorance and darkness. The shoreline grows, white horse stallions stand ready to clutch, to snatch, to reap, to scythe, grimly.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Trevor. That was lovely. Are you going to set it to music?
I probably could do.
You could do. Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have Tony Bradley. Tony has now retired and has enjoyed a long career in both industry and teaching. Poetry has been a lifelong interest, but he began writing poetry 20 years ago. Nature poetry is an area that he particularly enjoys, and the poetry of John Clare is a favourite. He has also run an online poetry group for many years. Warm welcome, please, for Tony Bradley.
Thank you. I have one poem in the anthology, so I'm going to read that one. And I read around the topic of how the earth could renew itself or have the opportunity to renew itself if there were no human impact on the earth. So I've personified some of that, but I also felt very strongly that if the human race is gone, it's probably the result of our own behaviours. And I do feel quite strongly that it's more than a tragedy, because there is a line of thought that says we have stewardship of what is a gift, and that is very important. So there's a twist at the end of my poem, because I feel it's more than just a tragedy. So I've called it Unobserved. An ancient army of mosses advances. A carpet of balm liberates and heals the scarred earth. Demobbed forests march to the sound of life-giving breath, in rhythm with the lungs of a renewed earth. Thunder drums across cloudless skies, as megafauna trumpets loud restored savanna and lush plains. Night screams a new cacophony, where predator and prey battle long in unpolluted darkness. Crystal rivers choose new courses, birthing groaning wetlands and the myriad sounds of nourished life. Oceans roar and swell to the dance of cleansing life. The coral reef is reborn and jewelled once more. Wolves survey their domain, once farms with fields of harvested golden crops and unwildered beasts. But now the badger is observed, grubbing in the virgin shrubbery of a dominionless earth that spins in an unobserved universe.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tony. And you got the badger in, which is very important. Thank you. Next up, we have Rose Leonard. Rose is a retired landscape architect and garden designer, now walking the hills and growing vegetables, volunteering and doing her bit for environmental activism. Rose has been writing seriously for about 10 years and has had over 60 poems published online, in print and in anthologies. and she's been a runner-up shortlisted in several competitions, including the Cheltenham Poetry Festival. Her poems have been or are due to be published in Rattle, Stand, Mislexia, The High Window, Magna, Ink, Sweat and Tears, among others. She's looking for a home for her first collection. Warm welcome for Rose.
Thank you, Josephine. There's been some really good stuff tonight. It's been fantastic. You've kindly allowed me to read a piece of flash fiction, which will take about 6 or 7 minutes. So I hope everybody's sitting comfortably and has a cuppa. And it was inspired by the theme of the rise of the badger and the great shrubbery, but then it got accepted by Confingo, so it's in there. It's called Utilitarianism. It happened mercifully fast. People who put on their coats, stepped outside and closed their front doors, slid into driver's seats, turned ignitions and headed out the way they always did. Just shut down, like toys whose batteries had suddenly run out of juice. They didn't even have time to pull over. As they lost power, they laid their heads peacefully down on their steering wheels and died, and their vehicles rolled into whatever was in their way at that moment. Cars ploughed into other cars, into houses, into lakes. Nobody suffered, and the virus had been engineered to strike every single person at the same instant. People still at home crumpled as they showered, collapsed into their breakfasts. Some fell while walking dogs, their tethered pets brought to a halt by their dead weight. Those early to work crashed train, fell face first onto their keyboard, drove combine harvesters into trees and barns, planes flew into mountains. You get the idea. That was many decades ago. In the immediate aftermath, there were winners and losers. I don't mean human, of course, it was all over for them. Think about it. All that meat. Scavengers boomed the way woodpeckers and fungi flourished when all the ash trees died a generation earlier. Every boom precedes a bust. The dogs and cats and buzzards soon exhausted the supply of flesh, turned on each other until just a few feral packs remained, or went back to their treetop world. And the excrement and bones of the carnivores became fertilizer for the microbes and seeds of pioneer species, the sycamore, the birch. Outside the cities, wildfires raged unchecked, nuclear reactors overheated and went into meltdown, tankers crashed and poisoned coastlines with their spill. Within a few days, the lights went out. We knew this would happen. We were in it for the long game. At first, there was a shocked hush, a silence loud with what was missing, the snarl and roar of engines, wailing of voices and sirens, all gone. No whine and grind of chainsaws and cement mixers, no Sunday lawnmowers, no rattling of shutters at the start and end of the day. No TV, no radio, no more roar of crowds at football matches or scream of overhead jets. The last bombs had fallen. Quarries echoed only to the sound of ravens. Very slowly, the world found its voice again. The asphalt of city streets heaved as trees took root in potholes to shoulder buildings and rusted wreckage aside. Birds grew bold and thronged among the burgeoning canopies, nested high on the sides of tower blocks. Saplings pushed through the fallen roofs of department stores, vines twined tendrils through menswear and haberdashery. Rain sluiced through the world's arteries, rivers and lakes rejoiced and danced with flashing silver fish, shimmering insect wings. Dear humans, you had a glimmer of this for those brief moments of lockdown when another virus sent a warning shot across your bows. Remember the dolphins arcing between the gondolas of Venice's canals, the wild boar tripping down Berlin streets? Skies were bluer, birdsong louder. You filled your lungs, those of you who still could, swore things would be different. When you were spared, you went straight back to your old ways. This is liminal time. Even we don't know how it will play out. Of course, there will be more extinctions. The last remnants of rainforest will simplify into savanna, Coral reefs have already turned pale and crumbled. It was too late to save the frozen spaces. We can only watch while the unleashed energy of billions of years of compressed sunlight rages through the Earth's breath and her skin and her temper. She will calm, as she has before. Fabulous life forms can and will emerge again in staggering complexity. We tinkered a little for our amusement. In the first days, we arranged for the gates of zoos and safari parks to be open, and now every continent has its own Noah's Ark of life fighting it out. Survival of the fittest. It is good to see the wolf and lynx roaming again in once sheep-wrecked highlands. Feral dogs quickly made their way onto pastures and relearned how to tear the throats of livestock with the wildness bred out of them. The wild returns to some creatures faster than others. We were particularly pleased to see the final octopus make its way back into the ocean. The stench of death lasted only a short time, most noxious around the sheds of farm animals corralled in their masses. Blowflies got to the corpses, of course, and the air was thick with their gorged buzzing as bodies liquefied and writhed with maggots. There were no humans to feel horror or disgust, and nature sees only opportunity. Those places in years that followed surged with nettle and thistle feasting on the fat land, and then the briar looping through the gape of rib cages, the thorn the mother of the oak, as jays buried caches of acorns which rose through the tangle and spread their shade to show the pioneers their time was over. Dear humans, amongst you were ones you called philosophers, who turned their minds to debating grand ideals of morals and meaning. Maybe you would have understood what we have done in the words of one of their kind. It is the greatest happiness of the greatest number that is the measure of right and wrong. What the proponents of this school did not recognize was the scope of this measure. They thought the right to happiness, health, well-being, prosperity, freedom from suffering was only for yourselves, and the purpose of all other life was to serve human happiness. They did not realize that other life forms had as much claim on happiness as yourselves, or see that your actions were resulting in great suffering to other beings, vastly outnumbering you. We had to step in to right the balance. At least it was quick.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rose. Gosh, that was amazing, all coming from reading the Badger. So brilliant. Thank you very much for that. We have one more person, by no means least. We've kept Nigel Kent till the last because his is the last poem in the book, and it's a brilliant last poem. I don't know if you're going to read it, of course you may not, but it's called Dear Former Tenant, so I'm hoping that he may. Nigel Kent is a Pushcart Prize nominated poet and reviewer who lives in rural Worcestershire. He is an active member of the Open University Poetry Society, managing its website and occasionally editing its workshop magazine. He is the author of 3 collections, Fall, Unmuted, and Chaudard, 3 pamphlets, Scent, Benchwarmers, and Psychopathogen, and 2 poetry conversations with Sarah Thompson, Thinking You Home, and A Hostile Environment, all published by Hedgehog Poetry Press. Please give a warm welcome for Nigel Kent.
Thank you. Dear former tenant, your application for accommodation has been refused. Whilst we are not obliged to justify our position, we would like to state that your previous record as a tenant has led to this decision and makes it improbable that it would change if subject to appeal. Your failure to take reasonable and proper care of our property prior to your eviction is well documented, and it has taken many centuries to make good your vandalism, and clear the waste you've dumped on your neighbours' doorsteps. We expect our tenants not to do anything that causes nuisance or annoyance to others. Your casual disregard of this obligation drove innumerable fellow residents from their long-held homes and devastated the lives of millions, many of whom we will never see again. You failed to heed our frequent warnings, continuing to abuse and misuse your accommodation. Your tenancy agreement explicitly stated that our property is for residential purposes only, prohibiting use for personal profit and limiting the number of occupants in the interest of health and safety. Terms and conditions you willfully chose to ignore. We do appreciate the desperation that must have driven you across the galaxy to beg for a second chance at a permanent home. But please understand us, humankind, when we say, sod off and don't come back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nigel. Nigel Kent. You can see why it was such a brilliant poem for the end of a wonderful book. I would just like everybody to unmute now and give a big round of applause for the people who were in the second half. And that was Roger Turner, Emma Davidson, Maria T, Alan Mansell, Rosie Barrett, Trevor Valentine, Tony, oh, I forgot the surname. Sorry, Tony. Bradbury, and Rose Leonard and Nigel Kent. So a big round of applause, please. And I really would say that everybody have been absolutely fabulous. I think it's for those who haven't got the book yet, it must have given you a real taste of what this is all about. I do hope that you will feel that you would love the book and go and get it. It's something that you can keep for a very long time and keep dipping into. And as Peter has been showing you by behind him, the artwork inside is well worth looking at. I'm going to say goodbye now and hand back to Peter. But before I do, I just want to one little sentence, which is right at the beginning of the book. And it's something to think about. And it's actually from someone called Rebecca Clifford, but it's not, the whole of her poem is not in this anthology, but the lines were so important. We may be the only species to choose extinction because it isn't cost effective to save ourselves. I think that's a really serious point to think about. But you have all been fabulous, both the poets and the audience. So one big more round of applause before we go to Peter for the last time. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant launch. Thank you so much, everybody. And back to Peter.
Thank you. Wow, thank you very much. That was amazing. And it was great to hear the stuff spoken. I mean, a lot of it I've only read. And when you hear the poets read it and the passion that comes from it, it's very exciting. I just want to talk about what comes next. So we talked about there's going to be a second book and more on that in due course. But following this online launch, we are sort of imagining a series of events around the country. And so we're looking for people that live in different parts of the country that would like a Badger event, a Rise of the Badger event. You know, we could come, we could bring books, we could be part of the conversation. It's not just about selling books, though, although that would be nice. It's more about keeping this stuff on people's agenda, because this stuff, for all the fun and the jokes about it, is important. And you know, we need to keep this part of the conversation. So sharing, so we would come around of these events. What we're looking for is not necessarily just reading loads of poetry, but sharing the Rise of the Badger and inspiring contributions to the second book, and to get people talking about what is potentially a very serious subject. That's my lot for tonight.
Thank you, Peter.
It's been a pleasure.
If anybody's got any ideas on that, please get in touch with Peter, because it would be brilliant.
You know where I am.
We also worked out that from the launch of Carol Sheppard's book that it's a very good idea to have open mic. So while we're doing all of this, you could still have open mic with that kind of, ecological poetry. So I think that's all. I think you can stop recording.